We're actually in a cyber war. We have a lot of countries that are not exactly our best friends. 5, 6, 7 years ago, we used to see a lot of attacks coming in from what we call script kiddies. I learned how to hack and now I'm going to go get somebody. But now it's morphed into...
Common topic that has been bothering me because of how frequently it comes up is the amount of data breaches.
Swedish financial bank that was hit with a distributed DOS attack, manipulated the toothbrushes that are connected to the internet. Dental records are so valuable. An entire person can be reconstructed with information because there's a lot of people that need identities.
The first thing that scares me is this idea that everyone thinks that they've got a solid backup and so I'm protected. The only way that you can really protect yourself from a backup.
Welcome back to another episode of Dental Rift. I'm your co-host, Gary Bird. I'm the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more new patients so you can grow the way that you want.
My name is Tanner Applegate. I am the CEO and founder of Unify Dental. We are a software password manager for the dental industry to make your lives so much easier.
And you know what? If you're listening to this show today, you are vulnerable. You have ways that people can hack you, and people are being hacked all the time. Toothbrushes are being hacked. People are being fined hundreds of thousands of dollars, and everybody thinks this isn't a problem for me. But if that's you, it is a problem for you. I promise you, this is going to change your mind about hacking and where it's coming from. It's not coming from the people that you think. It's coming from somewhere else. Stay tuned for this one. It's going to absolutely blow your mind.
All right. Well, I'm excited. So, Gary, in a lot of our other podcasts, a common topic that has been bothering me because of how frequently it comes up is the amount of data breaches, right? So it's been a topic that's been in my mind and I've been wanting to address it for a while, but realistically, I've been thinking in my mind in the industry, who do I know that's like a security expert, but also like a human being and not a robot? Because a lot of those times, finding both of those aren't easy to do. So I recently ran into and was introduced to Debi. Debi and I have been able to have a handful of conversations before this. She's probably the most realistic, down to earth, security person I know. And so I thought, okay, this is a no-brainer to bring her on and have this conversation and finally get some answers to what's going on in the space. So Debi, give us a little bit of background. What is it that you do in your day-to-day world?
Well, I am certified as a cybersecurity in cybersecurity for healthcare. So I work with small healthcare entities to, we perform 2 services. We help them to navigate through those data breaches that are happening every 11 seconds in the United States. And then we also try to be proactive and help them to defend against the cyber attacks that are happening every 11 seconds in the United States.
So the thing that I love is that, Debi, you are security only, right? You're not like an MSP or you're out there where you're providing other services. It's like you are all in on the security world.
No.
So listing off some of these attacks that we've gone through recently, we have Aspen, United Healthcare, Delta Dental, et cetera. The list goes on and on of these breaches.
Those are just the ones you know about.
So help me understand this.
Well, real quickly, we just did an episode where I held up the letter from Delta Dental and they're like, hey, you got hacked. We got hacked. They got all of our information, right? So that's Delta Dental. They're pretty big. And then there's been a ton of DSOs that get hacked. But the thing that always freaks me out is it comes into the news, you hear about it one time, and then it just is kind of moves on. But I'm like, my information's already been hacked a dozen times. So
right.
What is going on? Anyways, that's just me riffing. So
that was my first question: is what is going on, right? Is it my confirmation bias that I'm seeing it happen more, or is it truly happening more often?
Truly happening more. So think about our world stage right now. Think about what's happening in the world. We have a lot of countries that are not exactly our best friends. And we're actually in a cyber war. You attack me, I'll attack you. And it goes from there. So back 5, 6, 7 years ago, we used to see a lot of attacks coming in from what we call script kiddies. I learned how to hack and now I'm going to go get somebody. But now it's morphed into big business and hackers. Actually, they are in business. They are so detailed. So anybody that is on their team are called associates with a lot of these gangs. And then the people that they are attacking us are the clients, because what do clients do? Clients pay money. And so the idea is to get money. Now, it's either for organized crime, or they're state sponsored, but the state doesn't want it to come from them. So they hire organized gangs to do the actual work for them and then split the proceeds. So it's basically, we are in a cyber war.
Hey, got an important announcement for you. We are hosting the second annual Full Arch Advantage event, where you learn to create, convert, and close more full arches so your office can grow the way that you want. This is going to be in partnership with BioHorizons, and this is our second year, but the important part is it's going to be virtual, so you don't have to fly out, buy hotels, travel with your team. You can just register and block off the days and watch virtually. And right now we have early bird pricing. It's never going to be cheaper than right now. I don't even have a discount code because it's so cheap. It's only $199 right now to register. And it's for your team. It's for your dentists. It's for your treatment coordinators, your dental assistants, and your marketing managers. And you're going to learn a ton of stuff to grow. Last year's event had a 74 NPS score, which is amazing. And the feedback was really, really good. So if you're looking at leveling up, we have a ton of new content, a ton of new automations and things that you can add to your practice to really grow. And we're going to be going over a lot around sales and executing on the phones to make sure that you can grow the way that you want. So don't miss this. Go to Full Arch Advantage right now and sign up. This price will not be around for long.
So they're making money off of like the ransomware, right? Hey, pay us 1 Bitcoin and we'll release your data, whatever, right? Like there's that immediate revenue.
They've actually gotten very smart. Now what they will do is they get into your system and they lurk. We call it reconnaissance in my world. We call it reconnaissance. They're going in and they're looking to see who they're at. If you have a Russian keyboard, most of them, a lot of times they'll just go on to somebody else. But they're looking to see where they are, what information is there. And a lot of people or a lot of companies, what they do is they put their insurance policy on their computers. So the hackers will get in, they'll see how much is allocated by the insurance company to pay, and they will ask for that amount of money, no more, no less. We're not negotiating. We want that. We want that money. That's it. So they're looking to see what your insurance policy will pay.
Your insurance, like your IT insurance policy?
Your business insurance policy, your cyber insurance policy should have a line of how much it's going to pay. If you have a ransomware attack, how much it will pay the ransom. So what they're doing is they're looking for those policies.
So it's kind of like when you get overinsured in anything, and then once somebody realizes that they can take advantage of that, then all of a sudden your incidents go through the roof because you're overinsured.
Right.
How much of this game though is quantity versus quality, right? Like, so like I remember once when I was younger, and this has stuck with me forever, real estate agents will not sell your house at the highest price because for them, it's more about how many houses I can sell instead of going in and getting a 5% increase in like this house value, right? So as I realized that, I was like, oh, the real estate agent doesn't have my best interest at heart. They just need to push through a bunch of houses. And so in this situation, how much of it is they get into one computer, they want to go deep into that computer, or are they just going to like go in and hit 1,000 computers and figure out which one's the easiest to get something out of?
Yes. It just depends on what the gang is, or whether it's a bot, whether it's a live person, who it is, where they're coming from. 2 weeks ago, there was a Swedish financial bank that was hit with what we call a distributed DOS attack. So a DDoS, distributed DOS attack using IoT toothbrushes. They went in and manipulated the toothbrushes that are connected to the internet. I don't know why you need to. I've had 28 years in dentistry. Why do you need to have?
Well, real quickly. So I saw that article, but they actually came out and said that was fake. It didn't actually happen. Someone just talked about it. And then news articles picked it up and ran with it. That's what I've read. So maybe the second article was fake.
Yeah, I saw it in several of my alerts. So
me too.
I don't know.
I saw the first article came out. I actually had a post ready to go like, this is crazy. And then I went back and like later and I got another article in my news feed and was like, this was fake. Some guy was just talking about it, that it could happen. And then it was like, who's connecting their...
Yeah,
you think it was real?
I'm more inclined to believe my resources. So, but I will go Google it. But IoTs have been used to do those type of attacks. Not only IoTs, but systems. They get into your systems and they use those your systems to do a distributed attack. I've seen where a whole network has been used for data mining or for Bitcoin mining, and the doctors didn't even know that that was happening. So it's about being, it's about being proactive. And what you have to remember is how valuable your information is right now, because there's a lot of people that need our information or need identities in order to function in our society. And so if your credit card, so when your credit card is compromised or your debit card is compromised, you call the bank and you say, hey, I got a problem. They say, oh, we're going to turn it off. You go 5 days and you get a new one. Ooh. How do you turn off your medical record? Who do you report to? And what dentists don't realize is that dentistry is the only arm of healthcare. And I work in all facets of healthcare. I work in dentistry, I work in optometry, chiropractic, medical. So I see all of it. But dentistry has we have the demographics, right? We're taking their we have their dental insurance. So we know they have Delta Dental. We're taking their oral health history. But now a lot of our procedures have to be filed to medical. So now we need to know their medical insurance. And then we take their medical history because we need to know, are they on a blood thinner before we extract that tooth? Or are they on a bisphosphonate before we take out that tooth? So we have an entire person in the dental office. So that's why dental records are so valuable, because it's an entire person can be reconstructed with the information that is housed in a dental office.
So what does that mean? So I go in, so here's my understanding to this point, right? I get this information, I go and I'm selling it now on the black market. Somebody needs an identity. They're going out and fitting like who they are to this individual that is being sold?
Sometimes that happens. Actually, just, let's see, was it last week or sometimes my weeks run together? Last week or the week before, a lot of times some of the ethicals hackers that are perusing the internet, they know that I work with a lot of dentists. So when they find stuff, they kind of give me a heads up. And I had one of those contact me and say, hey, there is a dental office that the data has been compromised and it's for sale on the dark web. And the reason it's for sale is because that practice chose not to pay, which I don't want them to pay. I'm all about that. Don't pay. There's actually laws on the books that say if you pay, you're aiding and abetting a terrorist. So I'm okay with don't pay, but you can't just sweep it under the rug. You got to let your patients know. Your patients have to be proactive. They need to be able to, put freezes. I tell anybody I speak with, put freezes on your credit. It's free. You have to go do a little bit of legwork. You got to go to Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. You need to, freeze them. And then when you go to buy something, your credit won't work and it will be that dawn. Oh, wait, I got to unfreeze it. You got 15 minutes to run my credit report. Call your local property appraiser's office if you own a house and put a block on it or a notice on that if any transactions take place where your house, with your name, you're at least notified. It's easier to combat a quitclaim deed being filed on your house in 5 days versus in 6 months. And we're starting to hear more and more of those stories where somebody's house was sold, had 5 mortgages against it. They had no idea. I just heard today about a couple that they went on vacation and somebody actually hired somebody in California, and they live in Michigan, I think it was. They came home and one of their trees had been cut down because the person was saying that he owned the house and he didn't want the trees there. And so it's a notice in with your local property appraiser's office to notify you when your name is used, or any documentation.
Piggyback off of that though, Debbie, I was just going to say that like those, I'm thinking about the steps and I'm like, what is the likelihood that I am going to actually go in and execute on those steps? And like, I know that for me, I'm all about convenience. If it isn't going to be on my phone on an app, like the likelihood is very low. One thing though that I do know is that a lot of these major credit cards are actually offering this for free, right? So that would be something that I would do is I would go into my credit card and I'd say, hey, give me some identity protection on there. And it's just something you just have to enroll in right there from the app. It's super easy.
Right. And exactly. The only ones that are going to protect us, our identity being misused, is us. My identity was compromised through the Anthem Blue Cross. We're all victims of Equifax. I get very upset when Equifax is charging us for credit monitoring. They should be providing it for free. Because in healthcare, there are certain states that require you to do it for free. And so I've got a practice right now that was compromised, and they're having to, not only in the state that they're in, but in other states, because it's not where you practice when the data breach happens. It's where your patient lives at the time. And with COVID, a lot of people moved around. And so they're having to report to multiple states because, anytime healthcare data is compromised, we have that little law that nobody wants to talk about. It's HIPAA that comes into play. And HIPAA has a breach notification rule in it that you have to notify your patients within a certain amount of time. Just last week, HIPAA security rule was updated to align with the cybersecurity executive order that President Biden signed a couple of months ago. And so we're going to start seeing more enforcements. We actually saw the first enforcement due to a phishing attack in December. It was against a practice in Louisiana, $450,000, because they had not implemented the security rule, which is conduct a risk analysis, have a security management plan, have a sanction policy, have a mechanism in place to monitor network activity, workforce activity, all these things. I'm actually speaking next week at the HIPAA summit about what to do when you've been hacked. So it's having all these things in place, but you can't just push it under the rug anymore. Then we just saw a hospital last week that was also fined $4 million, but it's a hospital. But it's not just OCR that's coming after these practices now. The state of New York just levied a fine against a practice for $450,000 for a cyber attack. So I think that now that we've seen the new guidance come out, updating to more align with the cybersecurity framework, which for my clients was really good because we were already doing that. But now that we've seen that guidance come out, I think we're going to start seeing those enforcements happen more. Up until now, we've only seen really right of access enforcements. They didn't give me my records when I asked for them in a timely manner. And we did see 6 dentists, because I always hear, it doesn't apply to dentistry. In fact, one dentist got fined, I think it was $85,000, because when he was getting the letters, he didn't think HIPAA applied to him. I don't know who told him that, but
I want to know what state that guy's from.
Sounds like a cop-out.
I want to know what state that guy's from.
So Debbie, help me understand this though. So one of the things that stood out to me last time we chatted was that you, and correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, you expressed to me that part of the reason why you've branched out into other healthcare verticals is because you were frustrated with how unwilling dentists are to actually go down and do what they need to do to make sure that they're secure. Why is it unique for dentists to not embrace that? Why are they so against going in and doing what they need to for security?
because they don't think it's going to happen to them. They don't understand that they think that it's not going to happen to them. And they think that when it does happen to them, I just, in the last month, I've had several doctors call me, oh my gosh, I've been hacked. And then their MSP or their IP tells them, oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to do anything. And they sweep it under the rug. When your data is on the dark web, you're not going to be able to sweep it under the rug, because not only are people surfing the dark web to buy your data, there's people surfing the dark web that work in agencies within the United States that are trying to protect the residents. It's not a fun day when the FBI walks through your door and tells you you're under a cyber attack and you've been under a cyber attack, or your data was found on the dark web and you didn't do anything. So now you've got the FBI and you've got FTC, and then you're going to have OCR, and then you're going to have whatever state you are in. So it's not good to push it under the rug.
Is this going to get better over time, or is this only going to get worse?
Cyber attacks are going to get worse. That's a given. It's not going to get any better. And as long as we take the mentality that it's never going to happen to us, and that we can put our, stick our head in the sand and, oh, we're good. Or if it does happen, we'll just restore our backup. If you have a backup, because the last 3 incidences that I've had, the backups were completely destroyed. And so you may or may not have a good backup, but it's not going to go away. And we're going to have to start seeing, I think, more enforcements for dentists to wake up and say, oh my goodness, when you were asked a room full of dentists, has anybody had a cyber attack or know anybody that's had a cyber attack? You're going to see hands go up, but they haven't. Then you ask the next question, did you report? Did you tell your patients? Well, heck no, my IT just restored and said I was good. Well, that worked up until now. But for hackers, they've had to change their business model. We got really good at backing up. And so now they know that we're really good at backing up. So they will do a couple of things. They will go in and they will completely just destroy your backup. So I've had them delete it. I've had them delete the entire account for cloud account. I've had them run X amount of backups so that all of the data is encrypted, because a lot of times the backups are scheduled to, run 10 and then drop the 11th one and, just right over. So they'll just run 10 backups until everything's encrypted. So it's not a good thing. But they have gotten so sophisticated that they don't even have to do that anymore. They don't even have to encrypt your data anymore. They just exfiltrate it and send you a note. In fact, we're starting to see where with some of these programs where the computer's running slow and we're not really sure what's happening, and the MSP goes and he starts looking around and trying to figure it out, and the note is actually buried in the SQL database folder, that just to say, hey, look how far I got in, and oh, I didn't encrypt your data, but I did take it. And when they look at the firewall logs, they can start seeing, in the security logs, you can start seeing where the data has been going out and has been exfiltrated. And so it's really important that dentist or anybody in healthcare, because healthcare is considered one of the critical infrastructures for our United States. And it's going to continue to be a low-hanging fruit as long as we take the mentality that we've got.
What's the government? So this is like such a big issue, right? So like, I think about like the border issue, and I just watched a whole thing on the border and how many people are coming through the border. And then someone did an interview with somebody and they said they went to like Colombia, and they were like, yeah, not only is this an issue of like just people coming in, but there's people from other countries. If someone wanted to attack us, they could come in from, this border, and the government's not really paying attention to it, blah, 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 right? Like, and I sit there and I watch that and I'm just like, dude, what in the world? Like, why aren't you paying attention to that? And I feel like this is a similar issue. Like, I've seen the FBI's stuff get hacked before, So what's the government doing besides just saying you're going to get in trouble if you don't follow these steps?
They have actually been very proactive. There has been several, not only federal government, but states because this is such a huge problem. We have just last week, OCR released their new guidance, which you got to remember that the HIPAA security rule actually came out in 2009. So a lot has happened in the last few years. But the new guidance aligns more with cybersecurity best practices than it has in the past. And it's more in line to align with a executive order that President Biden signed in. We've seen back in 2021, we saw a law come in that encouraged practices to protect themselves against a cyber attack, and it would create a safe harbor if you could document and demonstrate that you have a NIST approved, National Institute of Standards and Technologies approved framework in place for 12 months and you have a data breach, it could create a safe harbor. This is why with my clients, I use the cybersecurity framework. It's doable. It's scalable. We do it in our home. My husband works for a defense contractor, so we have to do certain things because of that. So it's important that doctors start realizing that we are in a cyber war. We've already seen trains that have been attacked where they took out trains. We have seen water systems that were victims of a cyber attack. I just got a notice a little bit ago about a university that is shut down right now because of a cyber attack. So we've seen our schools shut down. We've seen counties, we've seen municipalities, we've seen hospitals, and we've seen private practices. I guess I see more private practices than most people that have been hacked, but it's real and it's not going to go away.
So Tanner, what would you do? Okay, so there's a lot there. So what would you do if you're running a DSO and you're hearing all this stuff? What would you do?
The first thing that scares me is this idea that everyone thinks that they've got a solid backup and so I'm protected. That would be the number one thing that I would do. I think that the only way that you can really protect yourself from a backup is like completely removing it offline, right? And doing the hard drive physical removal thing. And not enough people do it because it's inconvenient.
Exactly. Because now you've got physical security that has to come into play.
So let's talk about that, because we're talking about a subject that most dentists are not proficient in from an educational standpoint, right? So why does everybody think they have a secure backup when they don't?
Because they trust their MSP. And that's wrong.
So break it down. Why do they do that, Debbie? Tell me more about that.
Because the MSPs are providing the service. They're going to the doctor and they're taking on the responsibility. The doctor is saying, okay, I'm giving you the responsibility of creating an exact copy of my data according to HIPAA. And so I'm trusting that you're going to do that for me. So it's trusting that they know what they're doing. Dentists know how to put in implants and do fillings. They're not always proficient at the technical aspects of running their business. And so they depend on the MSP to do it. But I can tell you that a lot of my clients have come in because the MSPs have been compromised. And so it's about, in my world, we call it security in depth or defense in depth. It's multiple versions of backups in multiple locations. So yes, the safest, Tanner, you are absolutely correct. The safest and most proficient way of doing it is to have a backup that is not connected to the network. So now what do you do? How do you accomplish that? Do you have somebody, do we go back to the external drive swap? Well, okay, now we've got physical security that we have to take into consideration. Are we going to keep that drive in a locked door? How do we know it's not going to walk out? How often do we do that? I try to get my clients to do it at least once a month, ideally every 2 weeks. I'd rather see them lose 10 days than 10 years. But I will tell you, I get a lot of pushback sometimes from the MSP, but we're backing up for them. Why do they need to do that? Because the MSP hasn't been through where the backups have been compromised. And so they're trusting on their vendors. It's the supply chain that comes down. You know, we were talking earlier about the Delta Dental data breach. That was not directly in Delta Dental. It was from one of their vendors, their supply chain, Move It, that affected them.
That's right,
It was
I saw
not, it was not just, a hacker got into Delta Dental of California. It was because of a...
Yeah, but see, I don't even, as a consumer, I don't know who Move It is, right? So I read that and they're all, Move It was hacked, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know I didn't know if that was like a piece of their software or what, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't understand that.
It's a billing company that it is used. So it's somebody who had access to their computers because they were gaining information. And that's another problem that I see with healthcare and dentists and all of healthcare, because you go to the dental meetings and there's all this technology and it looks great and they'll sign on the dotted line, but they don't stop to do their due diligence as they should to see how this is going to affect their security. I've seen practices where I've seen doctors that will buy, I had one that bought a cone beam. And then those things are not cheap. They're like $100,000, right? She gets it to her practice. It doesn't fit. The footprint doesn't fit. The space she wants to put it in is too small. And her computers are not set up to run it because you've got to have at least 16 megs and all of her computers had 4. So now she's just spent $100,000 and it's not really going to work because her infrastructure was not set up for it. So I tell doctors, take a step back. Most cases, they will honor those show prices a couple of days afterwards. Do your due diligence, find out, ask some questions. Business associates are required to follow the HIPAA security rule as well. They don't have to follow the HIPAA privacy rule, but they do have to follow the HIPAA security rule. And I will tell you, I'm the first to tell you, I am not proficient in the HIPAA privacy rule because for me, privacy is what we're protecting. That's all I care about is that's what controls do we need to put in place to protect it. That's the security rule. Your business associates, if they are touching your patient information in any way, shape, or form, are considered, if they're creating, transmitting, or storing, they are considered a business associate. Ask some questions. When was your last risk analysis? When did you last have security training? Show me that you had a risk analysis. So often the advertisement says we're HIPAA compliant. Okay, great. How? Prove it. Show me. Document it. So that because I can tell you when there's a data breach, OCR and states, now the states have gotten involved because all 50 states and Puerto Rico have laws to protect their residents. And one of the first questions they start asking is, well, when was your last risk analysis? When was your last security awareness training? Show us the documentation. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. And so that you've got to send all that information in. And if you don't have it, it doesn't look good because HIPAA has been in place since 1996, the security rule since 2009. There's no excuse.
So I'm just going to quit and just go get a job. It'll be way easier.
But that's the thing. Don't be afraid. Be proactive. Yes, we've got to take it. Tanner, you were talking about inconvenience. Yes, it's a little inconvenient for me when they come back and they say, we can't run your credit. It was denied. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to log in. And which bureau are you going to use? You're going to use Equifax? Okay. I got to log into Equifax and release our credit and say, okay, you got 15 minutes. Are you going to run TransUnion? Okay. And do that one too. And then go back in. But you know what? I would rather do that than to have my house become sold out from under me, or not be able to get a new car, or not be able to do anything because my credit has been compromised. I've got a friend that lives in California, and her information is out on the dark web, and she's had so many times. She actually has a agreement with a local hospital now that whenever anybody comes in using her name, that they have to contact her because she's had people try to use her information to have a tummy tuck and back surgery. So I know of a hygienist that her husband is fighting that he had back surgery while he was deployed in Iraq. They're saying he had back surgery. I know of a mom down in Lakeland, Florida, that literally took her kid to the hospital and said, look, where was this leg surgery that my kid was supposed to have had? Because look, no scars, no nothing. This is him. This is the real kid. But she was being billed for medical procedures because somebody got her information.
So if someone, how does somebody reach out to you? So someone's like, okay, I get it. I don't want to be fined. I don't want to go deal with all this stuff. How do they reach out to you and get help with this?
Well, my number is real easy. It's 844 DK Carr 1. So that's DKCARR1. Or 844-352-2771.
Say that one more time. Say the number one more time.
844-352-2771.
Perfect.
And then my email is Debi, and that's DEBI @DKCarr.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Debi.
Thanks, Debi.
No problem.